Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Haas Talks Foss. I'm the Haas, Matt Yankovic, head of open source strategy here at Percona. And today I am joined by a fellow Perconian. He's actually famous, and he doesn't even know that he's famous. He doesn't know that I'm going to do this. He's just looking at the screen now in complete shock. Ananias is here today. And if you don't know Ananias, he actually has, and did you know this? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you did. The most popular blog in the Percona blog history. Did you know that? No? You didn't know that? Yeah. You didn't know that?
I've heard something, but I didn't know if that's still the case.
You're internet famous. You're internet famous. The most popular blog in the history of Percona. And we have the author here. So if you're not sure what I'm referring to, there is a blog that Ananias wrote that is, when should I use Amazon Aurora and when should I use RDS MySQL? Oh my, it is the most popular blog that we have had on our blog in years and years. Every month it gets great traction because it's a question people want to know the answer to. So what better way to celebrate the upcoming Percona Live than to invite our own superstar to the podcast?
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
No problem. Now that I've thoroughly embarrassed Ananias, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, and thanks for inviting me to this podcast. I'm doing great.
Yes. So Ananias, you are in the managed service team. You have been in the database world for some time now. Maybe tell us how you got started in the database space and tell us a little bit about your career and why databases interested you in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great question and a long story.
Well, we got 2-3 hours. We're good.
I think it's not enough, but I'll try to make that short. Okay, so this journey started many years ago. When I was a kid, I liked all these people with a computer during these times, and that looks like something interesting. And then I decided to study computer science, but until then, I didn't have much experience with programming and the Linux world or databases and all this stuff. And I told myself, hey man, that's not possible. You're studying computer science, so you need to find something interesting, to see what are the trends, to see if you like that. And that's how it started. I started voluntarily managing some learning on my own about Linux. And then I started volunteering as a sysadmin for some projects. And then I got my first working experience. I believe, as many people, it started as a developer. Then it became a bit of DevOps. And then as a DevOps, I had to get involved into administrative tasks and databases, websites, and all this. And this is when the MySQL world, made me tell myself, okay, this is where you want to go. That's really interesting. This is challenging. So I was involved into a few projects. And then it started. This is how my career in the MySQL industry started. I then started gaining experience. Similar to many other folks, the MySQL performance blog was one, reference, a great reference where I could find very interesting material, benchmarks, ideas, all this crazy stuff that the blog hosts until today. And then, I went to a few companies. I was involved into some national IT projects. And then anyways, almost 5 years ago, I joined Percona, and I'm super excited for this opportunity and decision I've taken.
Awesome.
So that's all.
Awesome. Now, as part of the managed service team, your responsibility is to manage the team's responsibility, not you specifically, although you're part of that, is to manage these complex environments for customers. So you are effectively their database experts. And we've got sizes of environments from smaller to very large and large scale. And so we see all kinds of variety of issues and problems on a regular basis. So I always like to ask people this question. What do they see when they are managing lots of databases as a common issue that they wish that the teams that are the developers or the customers are working with, they wish they would understand this or make a change? What kind of common problems occur over and over again?
There are so many. Let's start from the point where I can tell you that it is always the database who is doing something wrong. This is the most common approach we have.
Say that.
We have
it's not always the database, is it?
Oh, this is not working well. Okay, let's check the database. Oh, our latency went high. Let's check the database. And why this can't be fixed? And so that's one problem. And that's a, let's say, big problem, because we know to understand what are the capabilities and the limits of the database, let's say, not only MySQL, whatever it is, and how we should align our application and best practices with the database and combine them together, implement the required changes so that everything runs smooth. So that's one of the problems. The second,
so that's really you have to almost be a defensive DBA, because you are blamed quite frequently. Anytime there is that slowdown or outage or anything, it's like, oh, it's got to be a database issue. Start there, and you almost have to prove. So it's almost guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah,
right.
I won't say that it's not guilty. Because yes, it's the database who has a slowness. It's the database who that is underperforming. It's the database that has an issue. But let's go. We have two options here. Either fix the problem, that is priority number one, because this may be affecting from tens to thousands of users, and there are other implications as well, such as business impact and all this stuff. So you need to find a quick workaround and act as fast as possible. Without introducing risks, just judge and take the best decision based on the situation that you are and what resources you have available and whether the developers can help or you can do something on the database side. And then that is, let's say, priority two. We have to work on this issue and figure out why this happened. And if MySQL was performing slow, was that because that was misconfigured? Was that because we hit, let's say, a bug or a rare case? Or that was that we are adding too much pressure to the database and we could reduce that pressure by doing some minor changes to the application or to our schema, because we don't have an index. So our CPU gets saturated, and this is causing a domino effect. Then there is a slowness. There are some requests that are accumulating on the application side, and then all these requests go to the database again. So that's a really challenging environment because it's managed services. That means you have full hands-on access to customer environments. You get involved into numerous implementations, and customers may have totally different setups for either the MySQL product itself, either MariaDB, Percona server, or MySQL, high availability, the infrastructure across cloud providers, on-prem, different needs, setups, all this stuff. That's a crazy world, but believe me, that's the magic, that's the challenge, that's the interesting part, because you never get bored. You always have a challenge to let's say to fix an issue, to do coaching and mentoring, because this is also part of the coaching and mentoring, because when a company or a customer or a partner, let's say, because I like calling partners because we work together for the best result. Someone may be used to working on the same model for many years. So when they come to us, we may introduce changes that customers may not feel really convenient with, or okay, that's something new, we can't easily implement this. And this is where the why starts, because every time we have to find a better way. Okay, we understand that you were doing something in a way X. Now let's see if this can be improved and do that another way, because this way you are going to have a more stable environment, you are going to have a more stable database, you are going to have a more performant database, you are going to save working hours, human resources on your side, and all this stuff. I can speak for hours, but I think I've given you.
No. I mean, there is a lot to unpack there, right? Because I think that as you talk with users, you talk with customers, everybody's different. And I think this is part of the challenge of working for, even if you're working for a cloud provider, if you're working for a service provider, you have so many distinct workloads and you have potentially so many different variables that you have to troubleshoot and, work within. And the skill levels of the users, the developers, the folks on the project teams, they vary greatly. Some developers are, I've been doing this for 20 years. Other ones, hey, I just got out of college. This is my first app. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never worked with a database before. And so you have that variety. And the education portion of educating end users is often overlooked. And I like to talk about this in a lot of my talks where, a lot of developers don't think databases are cool. And so they ignore them and they don't understand the internals. So they just use them as a black box. They throw all their data in and they just kind of trust that it'll happen. And then when it doesn't work right, they don't know what to do.
Yeah. That was my approach, because you've asked for, let's say, the most common problems. But I have to be honest with you, sometimes it's a pleasure working with customers that have experienced administrators and developers and all this, have their own contribution, and you may get different ideas and approaches that you could even think of. So that's really nice.
And I mean, this is one of the great things, not only about, working at Percona, but in the open source space in general, is being able to pull ideas from different sources and hear the different folks in the community or across different companies, what's worked, what hasn't worked. Right. And I think that is something that is often not appreciated as much as it should be. Because if you know that this caused issues in this other environment, or this type of approach isn't 100% right, and you have experience in it, that becomes really, really valuable. And I think that really helps people get better over time, and it helps the customers get better over time as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mentioned you had some blogs out there, the most popular blog ever, and so I was hoping maybe you could tell us, so the blog is, hey, when should you use RDS versus Aurora, and we could probably even throw EC2 out there as well. In your experience, because we support customers in all the different cloud providers across all the different databases of service, when should people start to look at some of the more advanced features in whether it's Aurora or maybe other databases of service providers?
That's a huge topic. So it's I'm pretty sure you know that that's a trade-off. Okay, you get some benefits. There is something else that you may be losing. So there is no unique answer. because that's a combination of, let's say, the product itself. Okay, I want to go to a managed solution. Let's call that managed solution. Let's see what it offers. Okay, high availability, backups, ease of management. I don't need to worry about DBAs. I don't need to have my own DBA team. I don't know. That's not a straightforward answer, because it doesn't matter if you run on a managed, let's say if you have a database as a service, or if you run your own database service, then okay, it's there, it's working, but there is always a need for someone to take a look and maybe either proactively act if there is something that is going to be wrong in the near, let's say, next weeks or next year, or there must be some kind of post-incident analysis, or someone who will be defining best practices and best configuration set. So that's why I'm saying that this is a trade-off. There is no answer, believe me, because there are some, let's say, people or companies that want to have everything on the cloud because that's easier for them. But it depends what we are talking about, because cloud is a virtual machine, but cloud is the database service. So database as a service. I think it provides an ease for day-to-day operations, and it's really valuable because these are solutions that have been tested by thousands or millions of users and customers, and are aligned with business requirements. If you want high availability, if you want low latency, you can just, you have a drop down that says, okay, I want this type of disk. That's great. You don't have to put an order. You don't have to wait the hardware, and the hardware may become obsolete within a few months or a couple of years. So it's like spending money that you then have to renew. There are always business needs that says, okay, I want failover times to be within a few milliseconds range, and this is something that database as a service can sometimes offer. So you have to create a bucket, put your needs in there, put what is hard for you. For example, if you can't maintain this on your own, or if you can't afford paying someone to be on top of that, or if you don't want to do that, or whatever it may be, or you have dynamic environments that you may want to spin databases on, of just scale up, scale down, then yes, that's a great decision to move there. But in my opinion, you still need someone that will be monitoring that, that will be doing some kind of hands-on if there is access to the infrastructure, that will be doing some kind of consulting, because you always need.
I totally see that, where you've got a set of requirements, right? So do you have the skill set in house? Do you want to, do some things that the provider, so there's a checklist, and I think that for a lot of people, they're looking at some of the enhancements that are in some of the more advanced Aurora things. And so those are benefits to them. Maybe it's faster failover, or, better performance in a certain case or another. So I get that. But something you mentioned is interesting. And I want to key in on that, because outsourcing your databases doesn't mean that there is no work for you to do with your databases. And, I think it shifts the paradigm, because as you say, backups are taken care of now by the provider, upgrades are taken care of by the provider. That doesn't mean your tuning is taken care of by the provider, or your schema design is taken care of by the provider. So there is a list of activities that are just missed. And that's where I think that you need to be mindful and go in with eyes open, because a lot of people end up deploying their databases and they just trust that everything's done, and they don't think about them anymore because people think databases are uncool, right? They're like, I don't want to touch my databases. So that becomes quite a problem, and it leads to more problems.
Yeah, there are always needs for a DBA, and I'm not saying that because I'm a DBA, but you gave a really good example. Or let's say we have backups. Okay, if something bad happens, someone should be able to restore the backup. And that's not always a wizard to do that. Okay, and you need to take a few things. So yes, there are some decisions, or if you have an issue, okay, the infrastructure works as is, there was no issue, but someone needs to take a look to graphs to understand what these graphs represent, to interpret the graphs to a specific behavior, and find out what the root cause was and what changes may be required. For example, that's a frequent, let's say, we see sometimes customers oversizing their infrastructure. Why?
Oh yeah.
Because
the concept of bigger is better. Bigger is better. I just want to get the biggest I can get.
But why bigger? Because we see high CPU time. Okay, but did you ever went through the real issue? Because you may have, let's say, 5 queries that are not well optimized, or your schema is not optimized 100%, and you could simply create a few indexes, and that would solve the high CPU problem. So this way you are saving thousands of dollars or hours that the DBA could just
oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it can be a giant sink there. So Ananias, I like to end my podcasts, with a few rapid fire questions. It's just to kind of get to know you. They're random. Oh, don't get scared. I actually get scared. A few rapid fire questions just on random things in the database and non-database space. So
how much time do I have for each one?
It's supposed to be quick. It's just like rapid fire. So for instance, let me start. What is your favorite MySQL feature?
Replication.
Replication. Okay, fair enough. What's your favorite Linux sysadmin database tool? What's your favorite tool?
Linux sysadmin, the bus.
It could be
itself.
anything. Yeah, just a tool.
That's not an easy question.
Oh, you don't have a favorite tool? Oh,
I have, but
okay.
These are too many. I don't know where to focus. It's the bus itself, where I can just log into a server and start doing crazy things.
Okay, shell. You just like the shell. That's you. You're a shell guy.
It's
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Favorite programming language?
Perl.
Oh, you're old school Perl.
Yeah.
Least favorite programming language? Which one do you hate?
Python.
You hate Python? Oh, wow, that's gonna hurt like a lot of folks on the team.
That should stay between you and me, okay? Don't tell anyone.
I won't tell a single soul. And everyone watching on the internet, don't say anything to anyone else either.
Yeah, I know. This is not the best answer, but I want to be honest with you. I prefer Perl.
Okay. Fair enough. What is the weirdest bug or performance issue you've ever run into? Like one that just stands out. Is there one that you're like, oh, that was really crazy?
Bug. I've came across
or performance issue. Yeah. Could be anything,
Yeah, I came across multiple during my times in MySQL world. I recall one recent that has to do with the way that the MySQL optimizer works. And if you have a where clause with a few hundreds of values in an in clause, then the optimizer does something crazy and the performance is really low. I don't know how to explain that. I can give you a back
No, that's
reference
fine.
if you want. Let me find
we can include it in the video, right? Like we can always include that in the video. Okay. So we're going to meet up at a conference in a few weeks. And if we're going to go to the bar after the conference and I'm going to order you a drink, what am I ordering you?
Whiskey.
A whiskey. Okay, whiskey,
Yeah.
drink of choice. And if we were to have a meal, like if we were to end up at dinner together, what is your favorite food?
Okay, I think I have to stand up. Because if you sit here, you will see that I have many favorite foods. So,
but what would you prefer? Like if I take you to a certain, am I buying you a burger? Am I buying you pizza? What am I buying you?
I think meat.
Meat. Okay, meat. I like meat. Meat is good. Meat is good. Meat is good. Meat is good. And finally, what's your favorite book?
Favorite book. There are too many topics. Okay.
Too many topics. Last book you read then? Last book you read? What was the last one you read?
I'm not a fan of books, but I've read a book about MySQL recently that got released maybe 2 months ago. I can give you the reference and we can add this to the podcast.
Oh, do you remember what the name of it? Was it Efficient MySQL? Was it, getting started with MySQL?
No, getting started. It's about new features for MySQL 8. Give me 1 second.
Okay. That's okay. I was just curious.
Okay.
I always like to get plugs where plugs are due, and we have got a few authors going to speak at Percona Live. We actually have book signing there.
Yeah.
So, but okay, Ananias, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. Hopefully that wasn't too hard for you. I appreciate you hanging out and just answering some of the questions. Some are weird. I don't know where the questions will go. I just go off the top of my head.
Okay, that was great. I really enjoyed that session with you. And again, thanks for hosting me here.
No problem.
For those attending Percona Live, I'll be really happy to meet you in person. And I hope you find my talk interesting. There will be plenty of talks. Don't hesitate to reach me directly if for any reason you want to do that. And until then, have a great time, everyone. And for those attending, talk to you there.
Yeah. So everyone, May 16th through the 18th, we'd love to see you there. And subscribe to this channel. We want to hear from you. If you've read Ananias's blogs and you like them, go ahead and tell us. If you want to hear from him more often, tell me. I'm happy to talk about whatever. I just like to talk to people. I talk a lot. So help me talk some more. Anyways, till next time, we'll see you later.
Yeah, thanks. Have a great day.
Wow, what a great episode that was. We really appreciate you coming and checking it out. We hope that you love open source as much as we do. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to us on the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And of course, tune in to next week's episode. We really appreciate you coming and talking open source with us.